right, good evening, everybody. It is 6 o'clock, so I'm going to call the City Council meeting to order. Will you please stand with me to say the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Okay. I'll do just a real quick roll call. So, Councilman Lowe?
Here. I thought you said Councilman Lowe. I didn't hear it that way.
Councilwoman Kesty?
Here.
Councilwoman Diamond?
Present.
Councilman Henderson?
Here.
Councilman Koch?
Present.
And Councilman Burns?
Present.
And Councilman Lavaca is not here at this time, so we'll make a note of that. Moving on to approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make the motion if I can pull one item for discussion.
Yes.
Off of number 1, the check register, page number 4 on the council packet, transaction number 2405.
Okay. 2405.
Madam
Then do I have a second?
I was hoping to pull number 5 for
And
discussion.
number 5, okay. All right, 1 and 5. Okay. So I'm actually going to handle these now, if that's okay with the council. So going to item number 1, the check register, page 4, item number 2405. Is that what you said, Councilwoman Kesty? Okay. So Kelly, is that something maybe you can address right now?
Let me just pull it up for a moment.
No problem.
This is a payment to Councilmember Burns for reimbursement for travel expenditures for the, what was the action days?
City Action Days, Association of Washington Cities.
Yeah, the City Action Days for the Association of Washington Cities. The city uses a reimbursement request form or travel reimbursement request form, and we use the federal mileage rate for driving for any city business, and the federal GSA meal reimbursement rate as well. So that's what that dollar amount is associated with.
Oh, okay, for $360, I didn't know what all of that would include, like a hotel stay or food voucher, driving,
All of it.
et cetera.
It is mileage reimbursement and per diem meals.
And then what was it for?
The AWC City Action Days.
It's the legislative days that we have. It's actually twice a year, but this one always comes in February or sometimes January, and it's where we go down and meet with our legislatures. So Charlie and I were down there, and also Joe. But
Did any other council members get asked to go as well?
oh yes, we had put it out there. Yeah, if you go back and check your email, you'll find that there was information sent out for all of that. And in fact, I even made an announcement here regarding that. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
My email must be getting lost because I'm not getting these.
You're not getting the emails.
Oh, well, I didn't get what this one is pertaining to. Did anyone else see it?
Yes, I got one,
You got one?
and I said no because I had a conflict.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. And then item number 5, ending the Community Development Grant Program application process. And so, Charlie, I'll turn this over to you.
Just swiveling over here. Yeah, so item number 5, this is just in response to a discussion we had at the last council meeting about the community development grant process and sunsetting that at the end of March. So that's what this item is. It's just the opportunity to do that. It's the council action that's needed to make that happen. And that takes the form of a resolution because the grant program was initially created by resolution, and it stated that it would be basically open until we expended all of the funds. So Now we're not doing that exactly. We're saying we're picking a hard date at which to end it.
Okay. Thank you.
If I may, Madam Mayor?
Yes, you may.
After considering it a little bit more, after our previous meeting, that's what made me want to pull this and have a short discussion, because I was thinking that despite that it has been up for a while, it hasn't been up at the time of year most people are looking to do renovations to the outside of their property. I did email Charlie and ask what specifically, timeline-wise, we had to spend these funds. I would personally like to see it go a little bit longer because we have until the end of the year to have it allocated, and then we have until 2026 for it to be spent. Now, if we even modified the rule on it, we'd be able to leave it open longer without having any issue of it possibly running over that time by saying that they have to spend the funds by October and be reimbursed, or the city will reallocate the funds. If we just modified it in that little way, it would allow us to leave the program open through summer, allow anyone who's still interested to apply. Not saying we have to add more money to it, but try to expend the funds that are there and have an end date so that we are able to say, okay, if you haven't spent the money, it's over. We're going to reallocate it and do something else with it before it's too late. That was my thought on the idea.
So each of our grant contracts give them until the end of the calendar year to expend the funds. So that's what we've currently set up. So we'd have to go back and amend each of those to shorten it. And they don't
Gotcha.
agree to that as well at this point.
Okay. And we have only the ability to spend this out of the ARPA funds from the way that we've set this up. Is that correct?
We could potentially allocate other city funds to this program if we so chose. But we did set it up with the ARPA funding.
Yeah. Okay. Part of my understanding when we first discussed it, that this might not be possible with city funds in the way that we have set this up, and that ARPA kind of opened up what we were allowed to do with it.
My understanding, and Kelly will jump in here, I'm sure, if I misspeak, is that basically the way our ARPA funds work at this time, we've counted them as lost revenue. And so anything that we can spend public money on in general, we are able to spend ARPA funding on as well.
Okay.
How, excuse me, Mayor, how
Yes.
much money is still available in that fund? Just
The ARPA fund, we are going to be discussing the ARPA fund.
Okay, sure,
yeah.
that's fine, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I do know we did pull all of that information for the council retreat on Friday to give an update on the community development grant
Yeah.
program. So I don't have that in front of me, but we will be presenting on that on Friday.
Okay,
Is that
great.
adequate?
That's fine, that's
Okay.
fine. Thank you.
Okay. So does that answer your question, Councilman
It does to a
Burns?
point, actually. If we're going to be discussing all that in more detail, would you all be comfortable with pulling this until the next meeting so we'd have the opportunity to discuss it at the,
I
retreat?
personally would like to see an end date, so I see no use in continuing it. It's been open for everybody, for the entire community since October. And we still have, I believe, according to this, we have $27,269 not committed, and that's $27,269,000 that could be reallocated to a project that could better benefit the community, I believe. A lot of these projects, in my understanding, in my belief in economic development is that there should be a return on investment. This project was simply for beautification in most instances. Some businesses did apply for some grant stuff that would actually increase business, so to speak, not just in their parking and availability and that sorts of things. But increasing flowers and painting and stuff, yes, it is visually more attractive, but I don't know that that's going to really get down to the bottom line and give them a bigger return on investment when it comes to their overall sales, economic development, and the tax revenue that comes back into the city. So for $27,000 and the amount of time and energy that is put into it, I would say that it's been going long enough that people have had an opportunity to commit to it if they so wish. People that have come on board have had the opportunity and have until the end of the year to execute, which is quite a long time. And if those funds aren't used, we then still have to figure out what to do with those at the end of the year. So it's my personal opinion that this should be
provided an end date today.
Other thoughts, comments, questions? Okay, so we do have the start of a motion. We did have a motion by Councilwoman Kesty to move forward with the agenda itself. We're actually talking about the consent agenda here, but move forward with the agenda itself. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. So I have a motion by Councilwoman Kesty, a second by Councilman Loy to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda, items 1 through 5. Do I have a motion? Is anyone else wanting to pull item 5 from the agenda and discuss further?
I don't see why waiting a week would allowing us to have more discussion would hurt anything.
Okay. Are there other thoughts regarding that?
Does waiting a week upset the end date process for you, for the city?
It's going to push it back. We'll have about 11 days. So we would just need to do very quick communication at that point.
I'd make a motion forward to end it, to go with the way that it's written.
So including 5, items 1
Yeah.
through 5 on the, okay. All right, so let me get a count here then. So for those who would like to pull item 5 from the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so item 5 will remain on the consent agenda, and so now moving forward with a motion for the consent agenda, do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda as is, items 1 through 5?
I just had a quick question on item number 3. I'm sorry, I kind of got out of control there for a second. Charlie, this one might be for you. For the municipal judge position, I don't know much about our municipal court yet, and so is Judge Stiles going to be, he's going to be hired at salary position 108, I think it was. Is he currently working for us? And we would just be adding him to the city payroll instead of, how were we paying him before?
Yeah, he's always been on the city payroll. The difference in what happened here was we switched the way that the non-represented employees were essentially paid early in 2023, and we did it with AFSCME employees as well. We put both groups of employees on one salary grid, and you can see a copy of the salary grid in that packet. We missed Judge Stiles in that process. We did a classification and compensation study. We studied all these other positions, but he did not make the grid. And so he's been locked at the same salary that he was at from the last salary ordinance because his contract calls for his salary to be increased if it's going to be each year based on the salary ordinance. That's the way we handled the salaries for non-represented employees before. At the end of every year, the council would adopt a salary ordinance. Now at the end of every year, the council adopts the salary grid. But he hasn't been on there. So because he's a non-represented employee, we can't retroactively pay him for any of that in this time, but we've recreated, and Kelly did this work, thanks Kelly. We've recreated essentially where he would have fit on the grid to the best of our ability based on what he is currently making, and then kind of moved him in there and adjusted him for 2024 as well. And so we're officially now like adding his position to the salary grid. He's an appointed judge. He's appointed for several years at a time, and I can't recall exactly when he's up, but it's in the packet. And so we'll be going through that process again at some point. But for now, we just want to make sure that we pay him fairly.
Okay, yeah, I was just looking for clarification on what exactly we were changing. That answers it, thank you.
And it just kind of a reminder to the council, you can actually email ahead of the meeting, and if you want the rest of the council included in that, in fact, we could probably do that anyway, just include the rest of the council with the answer. If there's somebody either calls or emails, that is something that's disseminated to the council, so in case they have the same question, it can be answered. So just so you know, as we're moving through the consent agenda. So is there anybody who wants to have clarification for 2 or 4?
No, Madam Mayor, I'd just like to note that I have to recuse myself from number 3.
Number 3, okay. All right, so okay. So you're recusing yourself because of number 3, all right. All right. So I'm looking actually for a motion. I still don't have a motion
I'll make
yet.
that motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. So we have a motion by Councilwoman Kesty, seconded by Councilman Henderson, with Councilwoman Diamond recusing herself from the vote due to item number 3 on the agenda. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
All right. One opposed, and that is Councilman Burns. All right. Thank you, Council. So moving on to special introductions. First, we have a special recognition. So we are a bit saddened here at the city. We have a great manager in the wastewater treatment department, Kevin Wynn, who's been with us for over a decade, and he is going to be moving on. I understand he's taken another position, something that I think he's got a lot of talent, and I think that this is probably a place where he'll be able to use a lot of those skills. So I and the city would like to present him with a plaque, with a service of recognition. So Kevin, if you would mind coming forward. So as I said, Kevin has been with us for, a little over 10 years, and has really just been a great asset to the wastewater treatment plant. He knows what he's talking about. We've done some upgrades, we've made some changes, we've built a new treatment building, and he has been very much a part of that, and we are very grateful for everything that he has contributed to the city. You're going to be missed, Kevin, so thank you. So I do have a plaque here for you. It says, in recognition of outstanding service, Kevin Wynn, wastewater treatment plant supervisor, October 21st, 2013 through March 22nd, 2024, so over 10 years. In grateful appreciation for your dedication, thoughtful leadership, and commitment to excellence. Thank you for going above and beyond, serving the citizens of Sedro-Woolley, and making the city a better place to live. With much gratitude and appreciation from the citizens of Sedro-Woolley and from me. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much. Yeah, you're welcome. I don't know, Mark, would you like to say a few words?
Well, Kevin has been working for the plant for quite a few years now, and worked his way through the lab thing. He was very overqualified for that, but did that for many years, and replaced Debbie when she left there during the beginning of the pandemic, and he got a double whammy because our lead left as well, so we had quite a bit of backfilling to do, and so Kevin has been excellent to work with, and has kept that plant running in the parameters that keeps ecology happy, and that's what we like to see out of that process, and yes, you will be missed. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so we also have a presentation, which we're kind of excited about because we've been great supporters of Family Promise. So Audria Wall is here to give a presentation, give an update. I welcome you, Audria.
Thank you.
And I'm going to let you take over here.
All right. Thanks, everyone. I'm Audria, the Executive Director of Family Promise. We're a local nonprofit that serves homeless families with children here in Sedro-Woolley and across Skagit County. I always like to start off with saying that we were started by one woman who decided to make a difference and stop and hear a woman's story in New Jersey and it has changed how we look at homelessness for families with children. And the same thing here in Skagit County, one man who recognized that we had an issue with homeless children that weren't being recognized, stepping up and making that difference. So it just really shows how one person can really step in and look at an issue and change how we see things, you know? So when we started in 2015, we started with a church rotation that utilizes empty buildings, typically churches, because they sit empty 6 days a week. And we started just with 4 families at a time. Now we can serve up to 15 families at any given time through our housing programs, and up to 12 to 15 families at a time through our homeless prevention program. So one of the most recent programs that we started here in Sedro-Woolley was our seasonal shelter, which we just closed this week. I'm happy for a little break. But this year, we were able to serve 28 families in our seasonal shelter. 6 moved on to permanent housing. 9 moved up into our housing programs. 10 moved out into other shelters. And 2, we are still having hotels working on housing. None went back to the streets. So it's a big accomplishment. We didn't expect quite so much out of this program. It was difficult stepping into it, and I feel like we've learned a lot over the last 2 years. In 2023, we served 185 families in total. 80% of families from our housing agency went on to permanent housing, and 96% of families that entered into our homeless prevention services were able to sustain their housing. So today I'm also here to talk to you about the successful use of the tax dollars, the 1406 funding. And the 2023-24 kind of rollover, we have served 5 families through rental assistance. So we got them into permanent housing and then helped them for a couple months while they stabilized. All 5 families are still permanently, stably housed. We opened 2 units in the downtown 48 in downtown Sedro-Woolley. And we were able to use these funds just last month to reopen our Grace House, which allows us to serve 1 third-stage family upstairs and 3 second-stage families downstairs, so 4 families in total. So before I move on to what we could do with more $1406, that's a lot of numbers, and I'd like you to hear from a guest that's been served, so.
Hi, my name is David. I'm not only an employee here at Family Promise, but I'm also a graduate of the program. About 5 years ago, I ended up being in the CCU down at Harborview for 7 months. I was a live-in caregiver. When I got out, I had lost everything. My savings was gone, and I could no longer perform my job duties as a caregiver, so I had to move out. I lived in my car for about a year, trying to reestablish my rights with my daughter. I contacted Family Promise. Well, actually, I contacted 7 other shelters, and none of them would serve a single dad. Family Promise was the only one that recognized me as a family. My daughters and I moved in there. We graduated the program. We moved on to permanent housing through the housing voucher program and are still stably living at that same place. They offered for me to come back and mentor some of their guests, and I was more than eager to do that. I owe them a lot, and now I get to work with them. I get to do case management and public relations and church involvement, things like that. And I couldn't be more proud of this program. It's absolutely, I go to work and I leave work every day feeling amazing about what we do. Yeah, I'll go back to, defer back to Audrey, but yeah, I couldn't stand by this program enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
So I know you guys will have an action item coming up soonish about 1406 money, and I wanted to talk about what we were hoping to use fundings for into our next contract, if awarded so. We're looking to, again, serve another 2 to 3 families with rental assistance funding. That was a really good programming when housing is so expensive, to give them a gateway to get into housing. We know that they could potentially be stable, but if they don't have enough funding, they might fall back again. So this helps them secure what they need to do when they first move in. We'd also like to continue to use this to keep our Grace House open and available for 4 families at a time. So $1,000 gets us the apartment upstairs and 3 units, which include 2 bedrooms for each family downstairs. And then we're also in the process in our impact campaign of purchasing a house that's our longest standing transitional house here in Sedro-Woolley. And we were wanting to ask for an additional $10,000 towards that down payment, so.
Okay. All right, so your success rate is huge. I know compared to other, having sit on other committees, housing committees, and I know they just don't have the success rate that you do. So can you reiterate that again? Because I think that that's just amazing.
Yeah, and actually we dropped down for a while. We've always had a 78% success rate, and during the pandemic, we dropped down way lower than we'd ever seen it, and we worked really hard in training and figuring out how to work with more partners, and we got that housing success rate back up to 80% to permanent housing for our housing guests, and 96% sustaining for homeless prevention. So that means that's that many families that don't end up having to enter shelter. Their children or never go through the trauma, all the different things that end up cycling around to create chronic homeless issues in the future, right?
Yeah. So are you free to take questions?
Yes,
All right,
please.
are there questions for Audrey? Councilman Cock?
Yes, this sounds like very important work, and I appreciate your care and commitment to the community. I was just curious, how do you link with other agencies that do similar things? I'm just curious about how that works.
Yeah, so we have always been partnered with all the local nonprofits. We kind of client share. We're very close with Anacortes, who's similar to our program, but on the other side of the county. And over the last few years, we've also become a part of coordinated entry so that we can share our information with other nonprofits as well. We take referrals from nonprofits, churches, schools. Nationally, we're really well known for being linked with school districts. So when a child goes into a counselor's office and they find out they don't have a place to stay, then the counselors will call us. So.
Can I ask another question? This is an issue we used to run into. I worked for many years at Western Washington University, foster kids. Because when they hit 18, they don't have support anymore, right? Where do they go?
Yes, there are some other, so we can take take families over 18 that have children. We don't do unaccompanied. We don't have necessarily a foster children program. Yes, but we do partner with other agencies and try to get them matched up. I have served many people that have adopted children, and then now they're in a bind because they weren't prepared for that, So, yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I got one. What kind of budget do you have?
This upcoming year, well, when I started in 2016, we had a budget of $250,000 just for our 4 families in a shelter. We are now, this year, our budget is $900,000.
Anyone else? Questions? Yes, go ahead, Councilman Burns.
Less a question, more thank you for what you do. I'm on the board at Central UMC, so I hear a lot about you, but I never actually see you to say thank you, so I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you for your services in the community. It's greatly appreciated and felt, and there's so many families and children that are blessed for the work that you and your team do. There's a lot of people that go into it, and resources as well, and there's a lot of people that we see around that don't know,
Yeah.
about the resources, or you don't know that they've received help there, but the stepping stones that you provide and the tools and the resources that you provide them are fantastic. And some of the children that I've spoken to have nothing but wonderful things to say about the additional help that they get and how safe they feel and secure, and even just somebody able to sit with them and help them with their homework. Just those little things mean the world to them. And so how much of actual government funding do you receive out of?
Yes, that's kind of a newish question for us. So we just started receiving Skagit public health funding for our diversion program. It is largely funded. I want to say 170 or something like that last year. And then for our shelter last year, I believe we received 70,000. Yeah.
Okay.
And then our seasonal shelter is 100% government funded. We opened that by request. That there was a need 2 years ago, and then this year there was no other family shelter but ours. And then we have local city funding, obviously. Mount Vernon has been funding us for a few years now. That's usually typically runs $15,000 to $25,000 a year, just given what kind of extra funds they have, because we're not located in Mount Vernon. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Councilman Henderson?
Yeah, heard a lot about your guys' program, and it's actually one of the more best models that I've seen so far of helping families. And opening up with the seasonal shelter you had, so you usually occupy like a church or something that has 6 days of it being empty. So what do you do on the 7th day?
Yes, so there's two programs that we do that in. So I think what you're referring to is maybe the rotational program where families go to churches. On the 7th day, they come home, and then they go to another church on Sunday night. So they'd come home Sunday during the day, and they all have a room in our shelter. That's for our rotation families. For the seasonal shelter families, we rent the fellowship hall of a church, and they have just allowed us that side of the building. Guests are expected to leave in the morning by 8:30 so that our regular rotation guests can come in and use the full facilities of the church. So it also allows the church to do whatever they need to do during the day. So we don't provide the day center for seasonal shelter, just the nighttime meals, some time with case management, and then they have to go elsewhere. Except for in extreme weather, then we provide some day services or hotels.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I see Councilman Lavaca is here. Thank you for, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you for your
And
patience.
I see you have a question?
Yeah, I'm glad I came in on the tail end of this because it was important to me. I wanted to echo what the rest of the council said in our appreciation of your guys' organization. It's actually probably the most successful one that I've seen, but it has the metrics that really show that you guys are impacting lives and being a helping hand up and getting people on their feet in the right direction. So I really appreciate that. And I know a lot of the pastors around here have really appreciated working with you guys. I guess my question is, do you guys have to adhere to any government regulations outside of the normal, or are you guys solely private and you take donations from government agencies without any stipulations?
So when we started, there was no government funding, so we built all of our programming based on best practice models of our national organization. There have been some stipulations, but we were already really changing our ways to lower barriers in a safe way for children before those restrictions were put on us. So it was kind of a simple handover. The government funds does restrict how we can spend on some things, so that is why it's so crucial that we also balance with individuals and foundations and our local businesses so we can still do that wraparound service that doesn't always come with government funding. Was there something more specific you're wondering about?
Well, I think when you guys have more capability of vetting without so you can vet people that are going through the program to make sure they're going to be candidates that are eligible and then have a success rate, hopefully in some manner, but also that you have the freedom to make those decisions as a private organization without being influenced in ways that you would prefer not to be as your agency moves forward.
Yes, I would say we will accept anybody who is safe to be around a child. So that the fact that we're a child-based agency gives us the extra restriction that allows me to say, hey, like, I can't take this person because they're not safe. I wouldn't say I pick somebody because I think they're going to be the most successful. I do have some people that we always have a couple in each sets of our programs that are ones that need a lot more attention. They're dealing with substance abuse, mental health, all these things. But in order to actually physically be on our site, you must be safe to be around children. So that allows me, I use some government funding to use some hotel rooms until we can get them safe and then move them in. And then they have a set of guidelines that they cannot add more trauma to a child's life. So if they can't stay calm or do any of those things, it gives me a quick way to get them out of there. But I believe everybody in our community, every child deserves a home. So I really want to keep the barriers as low as I can while remaining safe. And we've seen some of that drop down, like more discharge rates during the pandemic, and we really focused really hard on how do we start working with these more difficult cases in a preventative way so that we don't see as many of those discharges. I think it was like 1 discharge from shelter, maybe 2 from all of our housing programs. So we get in there as quickly as possible and work with those risk factors from the second they call in before they even come in. That helps kind of answer that.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you for everything that you do. I was just curious, do you guys ever work with other entities for something fun to do for the families in the evening?
All the time. We
Okay.
love to do it, yeah. Seasonal shelter, we had a lot of game nights that were going on. David could probably tell you more about some of the stuff. He's working with the Children's Museum.
Jungle Playland, the roller skate rink, they're all excited to partner with us and help use their fun activities as incentives to reward the families for.
And we're volunteer-based. So pre-pandemic, we had 600-plus volunteers that served at Family Promise. That's what keeps our costs down, because it can cost about $1 million just to run a shelter. So the fact that we can run as much as we do under $1 million budget is due to the large amount of volunteers that come in and do activities, teach life skills classes, financial literacy, vocational training. So we really welcome people to come in and get trained on how to work with families and engage in all sorts of different activities with the kiddos.
If someone is listening right now, could you tell them how, if they had a special entity that they could?
Oh, for sure, yeah. Yeah, they could, the best way is to find us on our website, familypromiseskagit.org. You can also email me, and my name is spelled AUDREA, and it's just at familypromiseskagit.org. You can also Google us and get our phone number, and anybody can help get you the pathway into serving.
Okay. I want to thank you for coming. Thank you, David, for coming and sharing your story. And, the way that you work not only here in Sedro-Woolley, but with the community is absolutely phenomenal. I do have one quick question. I think I asked you this before when I met you, a couple weeks ago. So with the individuals, the families that are coming in, do you try to help them reestablish themselves within the communities from which they came, or do you just encourage them to work the program and get themselves to a place where they can move from transitional housing to housing of their own?
Yeah, so that's kind of a mixed question, but yes, we do. So a lot of times families will come to us, their children are in a different school district, maybe their job is in another place. So we're going to want to look at the family's goals as a whole to see what is best for them. They may have been in an area that maybe is unsafe and is not really suitable for them. So then we're going to want to see what is their goals for their career path and move them forward in that direction. But for the most part, yes, I do try to move people back to their school district because McKinney-Vento is already busing them there. A lot of times they have jobs in that community. And that's why Mount Vernon also gives us some funding so we can, their housing's just a little bit more expensive than ours as well. So we can get them back to Mount Vernon, back to Anacortes, wherever that may be. Because that's where their support is, right? That's where they've built roots and their families and friends are. And it really is about keeping those relationships strong for the child.
Helping them be successful as well,
Yeah.
I'm sure. Okay, all right. Well, thank you again. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
And as Audrey mentioned, there will be something coming before you that has to do with continuing support for Family Promise. And I want to thank the council for your support and encouragement to Family Promise. It really is. I have to say, it is the best program out there for housing. It truly is. So it's our honor to be partners with you in this. So thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. Moving on then to, let's see here, City Administrator report. So, Charlie.
Good evening, Mayor Johnson, Council. There are 3 items tonight. And Mark is in the middle of it. We're actually going to just go right down the line here and start with Kelly.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Good evening. So at the council retreat, we're going to talk a bit about or provide some information about the fire Proposition 1 and how the city plans to account for those funds and be as transparent as possible. But we have had some questions about the Proposition 1 from 2019 for the police department. So in 2019, we went out for a levy lid lift for approximately, for 56 cents per $1,000 of assessed value, in the hopes to receive $557,000 in additional funds to support 3 additional police officers, fund a school resource officer, and expand public safety administrative position. So in the last 4 years, so 2020, 21, 22, and 23, the total estimated additional funding for those, across those 4 years, was about $2.2 million. We've spent the bulk of that money over the 4 years on hiring or paying the salaries of those 3 additional police officers and 1 administrative staff, as well as buying new vehicles for those additional staff, and then kind of just the general bucket of everything else needed for additional staff, training, fuel, maintenance, all those types of items, and then some general overhead that increases whenever you have additional staff. The numbers aren't precise, only in that we haven't been tracking it as diligently as we plan to track the fire proposition money in the coming years. But we've estimated we've spent an additional $2.3 million with those funds. So really the takeaway is that the city has spent the Proposition 1 money from the police department that we began receiving in 2021 on those items that were included in the levy lid lift in 2019.
Okay, thank you. Mark, do you want to go next, or?
Sure. This is just a follow-up on our discussions over the last few sessions regarding sidewalks. I know it came through quite clear to me that council was looking for alternative ways to fund some of the sidewalk repairs that have been identified in discussions and things like that. You approved at the last session one of those attempts, which was a big one, and that was the unexpected opportunity to apply for additional TIB Complete Streets funding. They called it their Early Opportunity Program. And we've applied for almost $500,000 in TIB funds, which will support the repair and replacement of about 38 locations in the downtown core and related arterials like Ferry Street. And that goes a long way towards meeting some of those needs. We'll continue to look for other opportunities now as well, and the discussion tonight about some possible additional funds available from the former beautification project, that's something you could consider to throw that way too. We were able to move forward quickly with preparing that TIB application because we were already thinking about it, and so it was kind of a marriage made in heaven to apply for that. We'll know that fairly quickly on the TIB board meeting meets on March 22nd next week. We should, if we're approved, we should see an agreement the following week. And we'll be ready to go to advertisement on that project in early May and build those projects this year. And we're planning to do one big street project, which will include our previous TIB Complete Streets, which was a portion of Nelson Street and State Street down near the school, and also our TIB overlay project. So about $1.4 million, I believe. My assistant engineer told me today or yesterday that was the estimate for that. So been a great project to add in. Now, if we don't get the additional funds, I will come back to you and we'll discuss that. There may be a way of reallocating some other funds to support at least part of that and continue to meet your goal of trying to minimize the impact of that on our citizens. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to address them.
Any questions for Mark? None? Okay. Thank you, Mark. Yes, Chief McElwraith.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just want to give you a brief kind of update on what's going on in the police department as related to traffic stops and such. So this year we have performed 428 traffic stops year to date. 94 of those resulted in criminal traffic or traffic citations. 72 of those are traffic related citations. 11 of those are DUI. 26 of those are for speed violations alone. Just kind of letting you guys know, we're out there and about, we're being visible. We're not issuing citations every time we make contacts, because quite frankly, when we make contacts, sometimes stopping people alone is good enough to deter that action. So just giving you an update on that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Charlie, do you have?
No, nothing further.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to council reports. Councilman
I
Loy.
just, I didn't get a chance to ask Kelly a question. I was listening to what you were saying with your figures with 2.2 million, somewhere in there, and that we've spent that from the 2019 levy lid lift. So have we ran out of our 25% that we're going to pay towards this school resource officer? Or was I hearing you right that we've spent those allocated funds from the
Yeah, we basically, from the numbers that Kelly's run, yeah, they didn't include the SRO in that. And so we have prioritized that money in the 2024 budget, but it is over and above the Prop 1 at this time. It wouldn't have been had it been done earlier, but it is at this point.
All of our property tax money goes into the general fund. So it is hard to like piece apart, what part of it is property tax money we would have gotten if we didn't have the levy lid lift in 2019, 2020, and which part was. So again, these numbers aren't precise, but our best estimate looking back on those amounts. And like Charlie said, we're including the SRO in the upcoming budget. It's not a significant dollar amount, only because we're partnering so heavily with the school district. The other 4 positions are full-time positions that are 100% funded by the city of Sedro-Woolley. The SRO position, unless something has changed recently or will change, is 75% funded by the school district, so much less burden on the city.
So we've had actually several conversations recently about this, and so an added expenditure was going to be an additional police vehicle, somewhere around $87,000. When were we going to discuss the fact that all those monies were spent from that levy lid lift? I personally felt like I was led under the impression that we had plenty of money for this, and we'd been collecting it since 2019, and it was sitting in this 5-year pot that hadn't been expended, and now we're looking at funding an additional thing that we don't have any money for, but we're putting it into the 2024 budget, not being entirely clear as to, we weren't saving this money from 2019 for the school resource officer, which was part of that levy lid lift that was included in that 2019. I remember voting on it in a ballot.
Right. I can't speak to what was said in 2019 and 2020 about putting that money in a separate pot for 5 years. I have not heard that before. All of the money from that levy lid lift is in the general fund. So it's all accounted for in the general fund. Our general fund does have a healthy balance, and we have, it has increased over the years, so we haven't always spent we haven't spent more money than we've brought in to the general fund. So that's just something to note. And also the money, like I said, it's all mixed together. So it's not like we've ran out of money. We actually have the SRO position in the 2024 budget with the assumption that, or with the estimate that we could potentially start the SRO at the September start of the year. So it's a limited scope in the current budget, but with it in our 2024 budget, we still had positive numbers in the general fund.
So I'll just take a crack at that as well. Basically, there were a number of items listed with Prop 1 in 2019. The one that we couldn't do on our own was the SRO. And so we've been waiting for the opportunity to do that. And we did all the other things. We've spent money on those things. The cost of those things at this point in time, due to cost inflation, variety of reasons for that, actually exceeds the amount of money that we estimate Prop 1 has brought in. So the last item that we are looking to expend, the SRO, is above and beyond that. But because we promised it to the voters and because the school district appears to be ready to take action on it at this time, we've made it a priority in the 2024 budget. We do have the funding to make it happen.
I just have a side question to that. How can we ensure that the voters, when they come to us about how the money's being allocated for the new firefighters and Proposition 1 for that in regards to that? Because we're having this conversation now about not clearly being able to allocate, where this chunk is and how it sits. How are we going to change that in the future so we can clearly discuss this with our constituents in the community, because they voted for this, they're putting their money into it, and some of them are, they're pinching pennies right now just to get by, and we've got 8 positions available. How are we keeping track of that moving forward?
I'll just give you the short version, because I will have a document to provide at the council retreat. But the short version is that we projected the amount of money we needed for the levy lid lift to sustain those 8 additional firefighter EMTs for 10 years. So in the first 5 years, we'll receive more money than it takes to run the program, or what we've anticipated to run the program. And we've set up a separate fund to put that money in reserve. And then in the 6 through 10 years, we'll likely need to pull money from that reserve. So that's the short answer of it, and we'll have more detail at the council retreat and a document for you to take away and answer more questions then.
Thank you.
Are there more questions?
I just
Yes.
have,
Yeah.
Yeah, what was it, 2019, the levy lift was? Now, what was that, 3%?
It's not a percentage, it's a dollar amount per $1,000 of assessed value. So it was 56 cents per $1,000 of assessed value.
Now, is that assessment every year? Or is it just got a year and it was done?
The year the levy lid lift occurs, and this is true for any levy lid lift, the year that it occurs, you multiply the levy rate by the assessed value, and that becomes your new budgeted levy. So our budgeted levy grew by $557,000 that year, and that carries on. It is
Year after year after year.
Yeah, but it's no longer tied to the 56 cents per $1,000 of value. It's just a part of our bucket of property tax.
So, but we get that money comes in every year.
Correct.
So if the city council spent the money elsewhere, like he's asking about, different things for the police, we can spend it on other things by our choice, correct?
Legally, I believe that's correct. Although we strive to spend the money how the voters approved it. And we spent we did not spend the money on anything outside of what was approved by the voters. As Charlie mentioned, we hope to fulfill that final item in the next year.
So what I'm trying to get at is, the money pot was increased in 2019, and that increase continues year for year, even though it'll be the same amount, correct?
Right. I mean, it's kind of complicated because you could take it at its face. What we've done is taken it at that initial increase, but every year you can increase the whole pot by 1%. So you could take into consideration a portion of that additional 1% is due to this, but for simplicity and because the 1% isn't a significant increase, the short answer is yes. Every year we continue to receive that money from the Prop 1. And we voted on it in 2019, received it for the first time in 2020.
Councilman Lavaca?
Thank you very much. So if I understand that correctly, with the firefighter fund that we just did approve, that money in 5 years will be all spent for those 8 firefighters. And so if we end up getting 6 firefighters, we're not going to hear it in 3 years that we're out of money and we need to get a levy lid lift for 2 more firefighters.
We budgeted, and of course, these are only our best estimates. We budgeted for 8 firefighter EMTs and estimated how much we think the total cost will be for 10 years. So for their wages, training, all of those items, additional equipment. And then we divided that total number by 10 years, and that's how much we requested for the levy lid lift. So after 5 years, we anticipate that in those 5 years, we'll actually have received more money than what it cost for those 8 firefighter EMTs, but that will have set that money aside in a separate fund, and we can use that to fund the next 5 years.
Yeah, I think that's something you just mentioned in the previous answer as well. I guess what I'm saying is that you did that for the firefighters and you did that for the police levy. So the ISO was set to aside starting in 2019, as Councilman Henderson was mentioning, but it wasn't collected up for that position because that position didn't get created till just now. But in the levy lid lift, it was described the same way that you're describing right now. The firefighters are allocated so much funds, we anticipate having this training and this equipment, and this is where all the money is going to be divided. That was, I believe, if I read that, because I voted on that too, that's how I understood it. There's, for the police department, there's going to be this, this, and this. Each slice is going to go a certain direction. And now we're kind of at a position where we're doing the ISO, but we're finding out that for 5 years, that money that was going to go to that ISO kind of getting banked up, maybe didn't get banked up. So I guess we'll talk about it more in that meeting, which would be great to see your charts and stuff, get a better handle on that. But I think that's how I'm interpreting that.
Yeah, the only distinction that I was trying to make is that for the firefighters, the way we intend to handle it this time is to separate it in a separate account, or separate, not account, but fund. And that was only the excess. That was not done in 2020. We didn't put, well, for one, there may not have been any excess, but we didn't put any excess into a separate fund. It's just in the general fund.
Yeah, I guess what I was saying is you get 8 firefighters, you're going to divide that amount for the levy lid lift into 8. and then that's going to go to each one every year. So you have allocation of each portion. And so with the ISO, that was part of the levy that passed, and it was going to be for these officers, these vehicles, this ISO. And so that was going to be a branch. But now it's saying that we kind of spent the money over here. We really didn't say for that branch until now, where we will start saving and spending for that. So I guess I'm saying, like, if there's multiple things proposed in a levy lid lift, saying this is what your money's going to go to, I think the thought process, at least with me, is that that's going to start immediately, and each one's going to go into that pie, whether it's in a general ledger and it's being itemized at that point, or it's in a separate account where it's being collected out. I don't know if that really matters too much, because whether it's all in one fund, you're still having your itemized documentations in there. It'd be great to hear about during the meeting.
Yeah, if I could try to summarize on our side, I think what we are saying on our side is 2019 levy was not set up the same way that the levy that just passed has been set up. So we'll go into detail on Friday on the way the Prop 1 for fire has been set up, and it's segregating the money differently. The 2019 levy, that wasn't the case. So it's hard to segregate it out after you get several years down the road and we both start here.
Kelly, I want to give you kudos because I know that this isn't easy. You've only been here a year, and in 2019 we had a different finance director, and since then I think we've had two before you. So there's actually been 3 individuals who have looked at this fund prior to you. So the fact that you went back and you were able to kind of break down for us where the money went for Prop 1 for the police, that's very impressive. That's a lot of work. And so I appreciate that you did that. I know that was a concern and a question for the council, so thank you so much for doing that. And I also want to thank you for, it's going to take time and effort too to put this into a separate fund and to keep track of it, but really appreciate that. I hear what the council's saying, that transparency is important and they want to know where that's going. So thank you so much for your efforts and your time in doing this, and we look forward to hearing more about it on Friday. Okay, so back to Councilman Lloyd. Back to reports. Councilman Lloyd, do you
I
have?
have nothing tonight.
Okay, okay. Councilwoman Kesty?
I do not either.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Diamond?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Councilman Henderson?
Nothing tonight.
All right, Councilman Cock?
I just want to highlight a potential danger I know the police are very aware of, and I really appreciate all their efforts on speeding and crazy driving. But I've noticed, I live off of Fruitdale, and the intersection of Fruitdale and 20 is a potentially horrible collision. People coming from the west, heading east particularly, are trying to beat the light. I see it also people heading east too, but not so much. And I saw a semi, it must have run that red light going 60 miles an hour. And if somebody had attempted to turn, they're dead. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what else could do. I saw, I don't want to propose spending more money, but I saw a small thing in Burlington, and it didn't look like the big things that says you are going too fast, but it was small. And it had a little solar thing on top, which I guess powered it. I just think it's a potential danger that I'd hate to see some really bad collision or fatality there.
Is that the one on 20 heading towards Burlington High School?
No, Fruitdale 20.
No, the one you saw in Burlington. Was that the one?
Yeah. I don't know.
It's
almost in a neighborhood. I mean, it's on a street, main street.
State DOT put that in.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I imagine it'd be cheaper than the big one you see near Cook Road, right? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Burns?
Tonight, we had a Public Safety Committee meeting. We covered fire levy lid lift hiring process. Got an update on that. Looks like they have a number of possible candidates that are in different levels of the process for being hired. Washington Survey and Ratings Bureau scores, we moved from a 5 to a 4. Lower is a better thing. The lower the number, the more it helps people with their home insurance especially. Costs for that just means that the fire department has better capability of doing a good job. We had Mobile Integrated Healthcare Partnership. We were talking about the $200,000 grant that we are receiving jointly with Burlington from the local hospital district. So we're just talking a little bit about the details for that. It sounds like they're still working out a lot of it. Trying to figure out where they'll be based, mission, so forth. And then the police update we also received from Chief. Looks like they're still working on hiring for one of the positions. And we finally received cars from 22 and 23. Obviously been waiting on those for quite a while. And I believe that's it. Thank you. Sorry, I'm working from my notes here.
No, that's great. Thank you. Councilman Lavaca.
Thank you very much. The first thing I want to start with is today I had to call in the first responders to an incident that I had at my job site, and they were quick and well-trained and well-responded again. So too bad Chief Wagner isn't here, but I just wanted to give a shout-out to them and tell them I appreciate their help with that, and it worked out very well. So very nice. I do hear a little bit out in the community, or a lot out in the community still, concerning the Parks and Rec and how we tie that in and beautification. So I am looking very much forward to seeing that kind of take shape, but also the beautification through the grant program, through private businesses getting out there and doing stuff. That's going to make a huge difference. I was very excited to hear about the repeals that took place in Olympia this last session, which was very cool. There was 3, and one in particular was about giving the police the ability to pull people over. And I've had conversations with people out in the community. They were very much so in favor of that as well. And just like you said, Chief, that there is about 400 and so many people that get stopped for speeding tickets, and part of that gets actual tickets, which is great. I've traveled through towns and gotten a ticket and said, okay, well, I'm not going to go back here, right? So it's good to be merciful and kind with grace in those areas. But it is nice to know that the police will also stop those people that are speeding, because even if it's a warning, that's awesome, and that just shows friendship within the community, but that they're taking care of that. So that was really nice to hear, and I've heard a lot of great things about that, because the fear is that police don't stop them, they keep driving, and there's a reason why they kept driving, and then they're going to go somewhere else and do something very bad, and it just sets people's minds at ease that you have that power back. So thank you very much, guys. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll keep mine brief. For the sake of time, I'll keep mine brief. So we did do Public Work Director interviews on Friday. They went very, very well. We have 2 candidates that we are considering. I want to thank Councilman Henderson and Councilman Koch for being a part of that. Greatly appreciate your input on that. And we'll be coming forth, or I'll be making a decision soon. So the other thing is consultant interviews. Those started today. I know that we have a couple council members who are sitting on that. I know, Sarah, you have been part of that. Tomorrow? Okay. So, and is there another council member a part of this? Okay. All right. So, all right. There we are. Anyway, thank you so much for your participation in this. We greatly appreciate it. And now we will move on to public comment, and I will open it up to anybody within the council chambers. If they want to make a public comment, please state your name and how you are affiliated with Sedro-Woolley, and keep it to 3 minutes. Is there anybody in the council chamber? I know what that's like to be sitting there and kind of everybody staring at you like, don't you have something to say? So, okay. So, all right. And then I will take it on online. Is there anybody on Zoom who would like to make a public comment? And I see Val Mullen. Yes, comment. Correct. Would you like to make a statement? Yes?
Hello?
Yes, can you hear us, Val? We can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh. Yeah, we're giving you the thumbs
Hello?
up. Or can you give her a thumbs up, Woody, some way that she can, because we can hear her.
Okay, if you can hear me, then I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, my name is Val Mullen. I wanted to comment on a statement that occasionally appears on the city council agenda. It does appear on tonight's agenda. The statement says, because state law prohibits the use of city facilities for the purpose of supporting or opposing a campaign, or ballot proposition, we respectfully request that public comment not make reference to such matters. RCW 42.52.180 says, no state officer or state employee may use or authorize the use of facilities of an agency directly or indirectly for the purpose of assisting a campaign for election of a person to an office or for promotion or opposition to a ballot proposition. As I understand it, this RCW applies to government employees and elected officials, not the public. If I want to, as a member of the public, I believe I can talk about any ballot issue. I would urge the council and the mayor to consider the removal of this statement from the agenda. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else online who would like to make public comment? Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment. And no public hearings tonight, so we will move on to unfinished business. So the first item, and actually the only item under unfinished business, is the adoption of amendments to Title 13, Stormwater Code Chapter, Ordinance 2068-24. And this is a second read, so if council would like to move forward with a motion, they can tonight. So, Mark, are you going to be handling this, or?
I can start it at least.
Okay.
I know there was the desire to bring this back for a second read from the last meeting. There was a question raised in the interim, I believe, by Councilmember Loy about what the actual changes were. And the city attorney can address that, but there were extensive changes to the document to meet current requirements of our NIPTE stormwater permit, and it just wasn't practical, I understand, to show that as a track change for you. So Nikki, would you like to maybe follow up on that a little bit more?
Sure. So I did not work on this ordinance directly. This was Tom in my office, but my understanding is that this was largely a reorganization of 36 and 40 to put things in the correct categories. Like management relates more to development regulations, and then maintenance, of course, relates to the maintenance of the facilities that are already existing. The biggest change is actually the addition of 1342, which is the illicit discharge section. All of the changes that have been made are required to be in compliance with our NPDES permit, which is our discharge permit that is given to us by Ecology. So they're all mandatory changes. The reason that it is not in track change format is because things were changed around in order, and it's my understanding it got kind of messy. And so there was just a desire to do a readoption of the whole thing to make it all nice and clean.
Okay. All right, so the ordinance that's in front of us, is that the one that is spelling it out clearly? Is that what you're saying here? Just so I have it for clarification. So it's repealing, because it's gone through and it's repealing certain sections of the document. And
so it's so it's repealing 1336 and 1340, and it's adding 1342. So it's replacing 36 and 40. Some of the provisions in each section were moved around into different sections, I believe, in order to make them more consistent with where they should land, be it under the development regulations or under maintenance. And then there were elements of illicit discharge that were pulled out of those chapters and put into its own chapter in 1342.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the clarification, thank you. So does anybody have any questions regarding this ordinance?
So I do, if I may, and maybe Mark, you can answer this, or David. So on this document, it does look like a complete different one than what was there, which is unique when you don't have the track changes to find out. So you kind of got to pick it apart. Doesn't look like too many things have really been made different, but can you describe some of the things that might have been increased on stringency that we might not be fully able to identify in the document? And then there's a second question. We did hire on a county inspector, correctly, for our stormwater. So, and then we're holding to the current standards that we're using in our code, our municipal code, for the MPDESs and all of our BMPs. So in changing that to what the Department of Ecology has made their modifications to, is that something that we are required to do for ours? I know that the Department of Ecology does weigh a lot of weight, but they're not elected agency, of course. But
Yeah, basically, they had required us to make sure that we had included certain things in our code that were not there prior or were not strong enough. And so that's what David did, is worked using examples from other agencies with the assistance of Nikki's firm to develop a revision to our sections 1336 and 1340, which would incorporate all of that language that they requested. I briefly looked at it. I mostly left that up to David, but the changes are not unreasonable things as far as I can see. They just put a little bit more teeth into what was already required of developers in particular. That's mostly what this affects when you're developing a new project. And 1340 is also on maintenance of facilities, and it actually gives us more tools to use in that part of our operation, which is maintaining the system to avoid polluting the waters of the Puget Sound. The breaking out of the illicit discharge part of the thing, I don't know exactly why they elected to do that. I would be speaking out of turn to say it, but it basically, those things were written throughout the other parts of the document. Now they're identified separately, easy to tell what we're looking for when we're doing enforcement actions and things like that. So beyond that, we could have David come in and talk to it, but I think we would put you to sleep if we tried to go through all of the changes that were made. They're basically, as Nikki said, our attempt to be in compliance with current interpretations ecology has of the environmental provisions for protecting the Puget Sound.
No, I do appreciate that too. So we're utilizing a lot more lids within our system, a low impact development zone. And so that's where the maintenance is really coming in, because those are basically an engineered storm drain that allows that water to seep through the ground. If it's
Right.
not properly maintained or properly built, which is what we've seen in some cases, then the HOA has to take on that responsibility to kind of do that. Now, that's already in our code. We voted on that a while ago. I just wanted to make sure that we have a good understanding of what the changes is. So it might be helpful to have David come in and say, because it affects not just the developers, but any builders in our community as well. If you're doing work on your house, if it's so much room that you're using, or if you're doing a large site above, 10 acres, then you're going to have to, here, and it looks like everything's good from what I see, but I'm not an expert in that. It doesn't look like they've tampered down on the NTU discharge quality that you need to have on there, or any kind of a site preparation for doing that development. All that looks the same BMPs that we would be utilizing.
Well, we could certainly have David come in, but again, a lot of this stuff really gets into minutia. The state has their manual for discharge control. It's a 3-inch thick document in print form. Now it's all electronic these days, but this code is meant to tie into that document. We refer to that document in the code. So I think all told, this is a cleanup of our existing code to make sure that the city and those that we work with are in compliance with the stormwater manual for Western Washington.
Thank you so much. I think last point, we're looking at that climate consultant and the climate element to our comprehensive plan, and it looks like that might be on the docket this year for repeal at the end of the year. And I think certain cities, and I don't want to name which ones, have adopted that within their municipal code. So even if there is an appeal, it won't affect their city. They would still be held to that standard. I just don't want to get us kind of locked into certain things that maybe might be not as necessary. It's more something we would look to. I'm no expert with the DOE's requiring for stormwater, but I just want to make sure that and David's really good about reading that stuff through and understanding like, hey, this is in layman's terms. These are the changes that they're proposing or what happened to here.
Well, we can certainly have him come in and explain that to you. This one, unlike the climate change thing, is not new legislation. This is things that have been in effect for some years, so.
Yeah, it's just that Nikki had somebody in her firm write it up, so she's not really representing the entirety. I'm sure she's read through it, but they really had their hands on. And then David was the one who worked on it, so you can't really speak to it, but we're going to vote on it up here, right? And so that's kind of what I was thinking, maybe somebody to represent that side.
So just for clarification, our office just arranged it and made it into ordinance format. We didn't do the substantive work. That was David, who's the subject matter expert.
Oh, that would be awesome then. Yeah, it would be great to see where David was at and how he arranged it because it is a different form. So it might make sense, right? I don't know. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thanks.
Councilman Henderson?
Thanks, Nick. So I don't know if it matters or not, but in this ordinance, in section 2 and section 3, Sedro-Woolley spelled wrong with only one L. It's just something I picked up. So if we did vote on it right now, we'd be voting on.
We can state that. We can state that in the vote, if that's important. Sure. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? So given what we've heard, does the council want to move forward with this? Move forward with a motion?
I would hope to see David come back one more time and just have a discussion with us about it. That'd be my hope.
I would second that.
Does that have all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So I just want to make sure. Yeah, okay. So we'll have David come back and kind of speak to this. All right, thank you. Moving on then to new business, we have Community Development Grant, the Chamber of Commerce. And Charlie, it looks like you got this one?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Johnson. I'm going to request that we delay action on this item tonight. And the reason is we had a question brought up by council at the work session about the hanging baskets, the flowers. And the chamber, I've talked with the chamber about that, let them know that that wasn't likely to be something that we would want to fund. And the chambers revised their proposal. I just got the revision this afternoon, and there are 6 line items on their budget that changed. And I'd prefer to take that material, repackage it for you, and bring it back on the 27th. I think it'll just be a much easier conversation because I just spent a bunch of time looking at both budgets trying to figure out what changed. It's going to be a lot easier, I think, to have the conversation in a couple of weeks. So if the council's comfortable with that, I'd like to bring it back.
I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you, Charlie. Okay, another item, just an information item. It's talking about the Finance and Technology Committee meeting. The notes are there. And the next thing that we are going to do is move into executive session. This is a discussion with legal counsel regarding the legal risks of a proposed action or current practice under RCW 42-30110-1I and triple I. So we will be out for, so Nikki, what do you have a suggestion? 15 minutes, 20 minutes?
Perhaps start with 10 and then extend as necessary.
All right, we will do that. So we'll be out for 15 minutes. It is 7:23. We will be back at 7:33, and if not, we will come back out and extend the session for whatever we think is needed. So, all right, thank you.
Good night, Kelly.
Good night.
Good night.
Keep an eye on sign for us. Thanks for bringing the Prop 1 stuff too. Good conversation.
Oh, yeah. You summarized it much better than me.
I just trying to be there.
Okay.
It is 7:33. We are not back. We are going to take another 10 minutes, and that means we will be out in 7:43. Thank you.
do it, yeah.
It is 7:43. Council is still in executive session. 10 more minutes, 7:53.
Hey, Woody, can you hear us?
Yep.
Hey, could you hear us the whole time?
When I came back to the main room, yeah, I could hear you guys talking.
Oh, wow. Maybe I have to take that out of the recording.
It is 7:53. The council is back from executive session. No decisions were made. Given that, if there's anything for the good of the order, hearing none. Thank you, everyone, and you have a great evening. We are adjourned.